Erik Halterman of RotoWire back with some more trade tips for you. I've got 4 pitchers to discuss today, 2 of which I'd look to sell high on, and 2 I'd love to buy low. Let's begin with those sell highs, starting with Noah Cameron, who I actually just traded away myself. Dealt him for Wilson Contreras in the RotoWire Staff Keeper League, where I'm a few points back of first place and had a big hole at my second catcher spot. Now, based on Cameron's surface stats through 7 starts, I might come to regret that decision in the future, but I really don't think I will. Cameron has a 191 ERA and an 090 whip, but a below-average strikeout rate of just 19.6%, combined with walk rates and ground ball rates that are just barely better than league average. Looking for some names with similar strikeout, walk, and ground ball numbers last year, you get names like Jose Barrios and Colin Ray. Cameron is really just a soft-tossing kitchen sink sort of lefty. His fastball averages just 92 miles per hour, but he throws 5 pitches at least 17% of the time. That sort of profile is often good enough to stick around in the big leagues for a long time at the back of a rotation, but he's not going to be an impact arm long term. I'd look to move Cameron now while the surface stats remain excellent, and you could probably find a league mate who overrates him. My next sell high is Mick Abel, who is a fun storyline to follow this season. He was a first-round pick back in the 2020 draft. He looked lost for most of his journey in the minors, control problems that looked bad enough that a move to the bullpen seemed like maybe the best case scenario. Abel's control greatly improved this year, and he's earned a handful of spot starts, posting a 2.21 ERA and a 1.03 whip in 4 outings. But let's dig deeper into that brief game log. In Abel's MLB debut back in mid-May, he saw his velocity jump to 97.3 miles per hour. It's pretty common, actually, for pitchers to have an adrenaline-based velocity jump in their debut. Extra velocity, he struck out 41% of the batters he faced in that debut start. He had a 19% swinging strike rate, almost double the league average of 11%. But in the 3 starts since then, adrenaline has dissipated and Abel's velocity has settled in at 95.7 miles per hour. His strikeout rate has fallen all the way to 14% over that stretch, and his swinging strike rate has collapsed all the way to 8%. Hasn't actually been punished in terms of earned runs. He has a 3.14 ERA over that 3-start stretch, but that's mainly thanks to a 2.09 BABIP. A 5.72 FIP over that stretch indicates he's not going to hold up long term if he can't miss bats. Abel's spot is at risk in the Phillies rotation when Aaron Nola returns from the IL in late July, and Andrew Painter should be called up somewhere around then too. I suspect that Abel will be a key trade piece for the Phillies at the deadline, though only if he doesn't come crashing back to earth in his next few starts, which I'm pretty worried he will. Like with Noah Cameron, I would look to cash in now on Mick Abel, while the excellent surface stats could lead to an overpay. I've got 2 more names for you in a moment, but first I wanted to remind you about RotoWire's new promo codes. Use promo code YouTube15 at checkout for 15% off a RotoWire subscription. Not a bad time to sign up for one of those right now, with fantasy football draft season right around the corner, or maybe even already underway for some of you. Back to the baseball names, we've got couple of buy lows, starting with Sandy Alcántara, who I was very out on at his draft day price. I don't generally trust pitchers right away coming back from elbow surgery, and even before his injury, Alcántara's profile as somebody who was more about inducing weak contact than missing bats didn't really interest me as a fantasy ace, and through his first 11 starts, he demonstrated everything I was afraid of: an 8.47 ERA with a 1.67 whip, striking out just 17% of opposing batters while walking 12%. That lack of control is pretty common for guys coming back from Tommy John surgery, and when that was combined with his usual unimpressive ability to miss bats, the result was ugly. But Alcántara has looked much better in his last 3 starts, has a 2.12 ERA and 0.88 whip over that stretch. Strikeout rate is up to a league average 22%, and more importantly, that walk rate is all the way down at 4.5%. The new stat Location Plus, which is the lesser cited cousin of Stuff Plus, tells a similar story about Alcántara's command. A 93 Location Plus over his first 11 starts, 100 is average in that stat. He's jumped from 93 to 109 over his last 3 outings. He was at 105 when we last saw him back in 2023, so I'm willing to buy the narrative that Alcántara needed about 2 months to remember how to pitch following Tommy John surgery, and that he's going to be much closer to the peak version of himself going forward. I still wouldn't pay anything close to peak Sandy Alcántara prices for him, but I think you can get him for much cheaper than that, while his ERA sits at an ugly 6.88. And finally, Ben Brown is somebody who's been frustrating me all year, as somebody I targeted pretty heavily as a sleeper back in draft season, but I just can't quit him, and recent developments have me buying back in. Brown has been one of the biggest underperformers relative to his ERA estimators this season. He has an ERA of 5.71 heading into his start Tuesday against the Brewers, but a 3.38 xFIP and a 3.33 Sierra. 27% strikeout rate combined with a 7% walk rate, that's a combination that should work long term, but Brown has been held back by a 3.68 BABIP, and there's reason to believe an elevated BABIP isn't entirely luck with him, although 3.68 involves some bad luck for anybody. Brown has mostly been just a two-pitch pitcher throughout his career, so if hitters could eliminate a certain pitch in certain counts, they could really tee off. Probably also explains his inconsistency this year, because it's not uncommon for a pitcher to not have great feel for one of his pitchers. That probably also explains his inconsistency this year, because it's not all that uncommon for a pitcher to not have great feel for one of his pitches in a given start. When you have 5 pitches, that's not a big deal. You can just use the other 4, but when you only have 2, that leaves you with only 1 pitch you can trust that day. But Ben Brown is not a 2-pitch guy anymore. He introduced a kick change, which is the trendy new pitch of the year, back in May. He's used it 7% of the time across his last 5 starts, peaking at 10% in one outing. That's not a lot, but all he needs to do is throw it enough that it's in batters' heads so they can't tee off on his other 2 pitches. He's got a 96-mile-per-hour fastball and a nasty knuckle curve already that should be able to do most of the work as long as there's a third pitch alongside him. I doubt you'll have to pay all that much for a guy with a 5.71 ERA and 1.47 whip on the year. You can probably even get Brown as a throw-in in a larger deal, or even just grab him off waivers in a lot of leagues. I would look to do that now before the new pitch helps bring his ERA in line with his already very strong ERA estimators. That's it for today's video, but let me know in the comments if you've managed to make a deal involving any of these guys, and remember, use code YouTube15 for 15% off a RotoWire subscription.